Echo! 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 Echo!
How you get so big getting food of this kind?
Hello and welcome into this week's spoiler review for Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7, the final season. This week we're going to be talking about the episode A Distant Echo, and as I said, there's going to be spoilers ahead, so beware beyond this point. So let's get the big one out of the way. We have seen Echo, and we have seen that Echo is alive. We don't necessarily see exactly what has gone on with him, but clearly it's something drastic. But that is, of course, the end of the episode, and we're going to get there, but it's just... even though the state we find him in is horrifying, it's so nice to have Echo back. But I will have more on that when we reach the end of the review. For now, let's kind of go back to the beginning. So where this episode starts, we have Anakin and Rex and Hunter, and they're chatting because they want to have a mission to go find Echo. And this becomes the big tension throughout the episode, that Rex believes that Echo is alive. Echo being alive is so astronomically unlikely. For those of you who might not remember, that is a Season 3 arc, the arc with Tarkin, where they go to the place that has, like, the Trandoshan that talks like Christopher Walken, and Ahsoka's there, and there's, like, carbon freezing, that whole arc. But it's kind of unreasonable, because beyond the fact that everyone saw him die, there's just, why would the Separatists have kept a clone alive, and for what reasons? Which is something we're gonna find out next week. This becomes the thing where Rex believes that his brother is alive. Even Anakin is like, I don't know. Anakin kind of ends up going along to support Rex. The other clones don't even really seem to know, and that shows the continued tension between Bad Batch and the Regs. This idea of, you know, the Regs couldn't possibly know as much as Clone Force 99 would, and we're seeing that start to play out at the beginning. They've decided to go on the mission. At the very least, they need to know what's going on. They need to know what that transmission is. They need to know the data it's sending, because that data is tied to how the Republic is getting beat so badly. Before they leave, Anakin pulls Rex aside for a thing that they have to do. Now, this scene is one of the greatest things I have seen in Star Wars, and as somebody who is like a super prequels fan, grew up on the prequels, like, the prequel trilogy, it kind of like is my baseline for what the Star Wars saga is, because, you know, those were the movies that came out at like the right age for me. You know, it was very fulfilling, and as a Clone Wars fan, it was very fulfilling. But it's also interesting because, as I understand it, this scene is not in the story reels that got released. So I talked about last week, and we talked about on our stream, that these episodes are adapted from animatics that have been available online. Last I knew, you could still just find them on YouTube without having to look too hard. There was a different scene in those animatics, which I haven't actually gone back and watched, but it's definitely not this scene, because I definitely would have remembered everything that happened here. We are seeing that these episodes are altered, which isn't entirely surprising to me. What we're getting is new. I didn't necessarily think we'd see this scene coming, but I'm not surprised that they've updated it, especially because they're basically trying to end the series in 12 episodes, and they really still had 2 seasons of material to pull from, so what we're seeing here could easily have been a bit between Anakin and Rex in a different arc that they decided to put into this arc because it would fit easily. I don't know that for a fact, but it just makes sense to me. There are other arcs of the Clone Wars that we still will never get to see, and why not repurpose something that useful and put it in here? Oh, or it could just be an evolution of what they had a couple of years ago. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, the scene is great. It answers one of the big questions, at least to a degree it answers those questions, which is how many people knew about Anakin and Padme, and how could people not know about Anakin and Padme? So effectively what happens is Anakin uses Rex as like a sentry, and comes up with a story about having to like check Rex's helmet so he can go contact Padme, and that he and Padme were having these like scheduled calls during the war. This is important just from an Anakin and Padme level. There's so little about their relationship that we really get to see in the prequel trilogy. We see them when they meet, but there's nothing really going on there. We see them during like their hormone-fueled adventure where they end up getting married, and we see how it all falls apart, but we don't get to see those 3 years in the middle that clearly must have consisted of something. We see a lot of that in the Clone Wars, and here is nice too. This idea of the Outer Rim sieges, and that the sieges were going to take a long time, and this ties into stuff we knew from Legends canon, stuff from like the pre-Clone Wars multimedia project that happened even before the books and stuff that tied into the 2008 Clone Wars series, but the stuff that came out around the 2005 Clone Wars series had the Outer Rim sieges, and it had Anakin really far away from Padme for a long time. And so this is kind of showing that where we'd been used to in the Clone Wars before, Padme could always just kind of happen to show up on all of the adventures. The way I'm taking it, at least, and I could be wrong, is that we're showing these later stages of the war that kept Anakin away from Coruscant. And that probably works out well for Anakin, who's probably still reeling from Ahsoka leaving the Order. And if he doesn't have to be around the Jedi and doesn't have to be around the Temple, it makes that whole process easier, if such a thing can be easy. I mean, just from a sheer understanding the logistics of a war thing, like, I like that. I like seeing Anakin and Padme together. I like that there's actually a healthy relationship there, that it's not just two kids that just need to work out some things and they picked each other for that. I like seeing the dynamic they have. It's nice because Padme is giving Anakin really good advice, and it's the type of advice he really needs. You know, this, do you believe Rex or not? Does it even matter if you believe Rex's story and Rex's theory? You believe in Rex, so you should be there with Rex because he's there for you. And to show the kind of equality that Padme has there too, that it's not that Rex is just a soldier. Like, she understands that Anakin and Rex are friends, and she's like, this is how you go and be a friend to Rex. And so we're seeing Padme's own wisdom, we're seeing how at least she, and by extension, hopefully more people of the Republic, but obviously her, you know, are seeing the clones as the actual human beings that they are. And we're seeing Anakin take advice from her. We're seeing Anakin understanding, and when he's like, I think Rex is being too personal, and she's like, he learned that from you. He's like, you know, you're right. You know, he doesn't get defensive about it. And just seeing this kind of working marriage that they had was nice. And then to know that Rex is aware that Anakin and Padme are a thing, and it was comedic watching Rex like cover for him, and Obi-Wan shows up, and Obi-Wan's like, what are you doing? And Rex is like, oh, you know, the stuff. It was really fun. It was that kind of goofy antics that I like between our core Clone Wars crew, where they're just like this strange, dysfunctional family of roommates. Like, I don't really know how else to describe them. And for them to like go through all of these charades and try to trick Obi-Wan, and then they walk away and Obi-Wan just yells, I hope you told Padme I said hello. And it's like, oh snap, he knew. He knows something is up. And we see that, you know, in Revenge of the Sith, he goes to talk to Padme to check on Anakin. Like, he has to know something's up. And Padme doesn't think it's weird that Obi-Wan is there checking up on Anakin. So does that mean that Padme knew that Obi-Wan knew? Like, from this point on, does it become like a normalized thing where it's just this unspoken secret? Or is it just played off the way it is in Revenge of the Sith? You know, I don't know. But I liked that a lot, because Obi-Wan could not be that dumb. Now, it doesn't fully answer the question, because people often ask the question, like, do people know that Anakin and Padme are married? I don't know that Rex knows that Anakin and Padme are married. I don't know that Obi-Wan knows that Anakin and Padme are married. They know there's a thing. They know there's something going on there. They know what's up. They might not be aware that, you know, they put a ring on it, but other than that, they know enough. So I guess it depends on semantically how much that's important to you. But that was just peak prequel content for prequel lovers. And we're still in just a couple of minutes, first few minutes of the episode there, but that was a scene that just, oh, so much. It was just so much and so good. Now they go off on the mission, so it's Clone Force 99 plus Anakin and Rex. I like seeing the dynamic of this group mold and change over time. So they're all kind of going out on the mission, and it's certainly not uneasy, but they're not necessarily best buds. I love looking on the, you know, when you're on the ship, you see like Records pumping the Gonk droid, which is funny, and then Anakin is checking out Crosshair's sniper rifle. So, you know, they're just trying to get to know each other, and they're trying to work through it. But then later, when they lose Echo's signal, Crosshair actually challenges Rex, and they end up in a fight. And it just kind of becomes this idea of, is Rex admitting that his friend could be dead, his brother could be dead, and there's this kind of bickering. And then at the end of the episode, Hunter looks at Rex and says, hey, I hope you find what you're looking for. And Rex goes in with Tech and finds Echo. And so I liked seeing this extension of what we had seen last week, where there was this unease between Clone Force 99 and Regs. and as they continue to grow. And I even liked when they all split off into groups and Anakin and Crosshair went off together, and then you see Anakin and Crosshair interact and Crosshair saves Anakin. To see them, and then like the fight at the end just outside the chamber to get Echo, seeing Clone Force 99 interacting well with Anakin and seeing them kind of fit in. I'm sure it's not done yet. We haven't seen the end of this emotional journey, but I do like seeing how they're kind of coming to get to know each other, that Clone Force 99 has to get used to working with other people, and people have to get used to them. It's just going off of what I said last week, which is how interesting it is to see clones who are so different that they actually have to get to know each other. And it's not just simply, do you follow the reg manuals or do you not follow the reg manuals? But like, they're actually just different, and what that means to a group of people that have kind of defined themselves off of being brothers in the same person. I also appreciated Anakin throughout the episode when they go and they meet the people of the planet, and he's like, no, we need to not kill them, we need to try to talk to them. He's not as apt to just rush into a fight as he would have been even in Attack of the Clones. That kind of fits with the Anakin we see in Revenge of the Sith, that he's the calmer, not more level-headed than Obi-Wan, but more level-headed guy as they go and fight Dooku, and, you know, Anakin's like, I say patience when they're stuck in the ray shields. And to see his progression, especially as a leader, is nice throughout the episode. Another cool thing is the people on the planet who are riding the weird bat things that look like the one thing in Jedi Fallen Order. They actually remind me a lot of the Beast Riders of Onderon, which is not going to be a direct thing in current canon because we've seen Onderon, and at least it hasn't really mentioned the Beast Riders. Onderon in Legends had a group of people that lived in the walled city of Isis. It was an important thing to have like this bond with these like dragon things that would fly. And I don't know that it's actually meant to reference that, but that was something I thought of. Those are from the one of the arcs in the Tales from the Jedi comics. I can't remember which arc specifically, but those are A+ comics if you ever want to read some good Legends content, especially if you are excited for the High Republic announcement that came out recently. And you just can't wait for something like that if you've not read Tales. But now I'm getting off topic. When they eventually get to the village, and the way that Tech like translates with his helmet was really neat. You see that they are people that don't want the war. They seem to be aware of it. They were described as primitive, but you know, it seemed to be that thing of like, well, how do you define primitive? Because they had structures, they had language, they had an understanding that the galaxy was at war, so they can't really be that primitive. They opt to help, even though they took Anakin to try to stop war from coming. And they're like, we're not here for war, Wat Tambor's already here, he wants the war, he took our friend, we're gonna just go get our friend and we're gonna leave. That's how they kind of enlist the help with them. I like this week, as I did last week, watching Bad Batch like figure out stuff, really fight using each other's abilities. So for example, Tech reads the flying thing that took Anakin and gets coordinates, and then Crosshair shoots it, and then Hunter grabs on the thing and he flies to go get Anakin, and then they track him to get to Anakin. So they really work as this great cohesive squad, and I was enjoying it as much this week as I did last week. And of course the action this week was really good. I really liked the humor this week. You know, I hope none of you have a problem with heights, and Wrecker is like, I'm not afraid of anything, but if you get me high enough, I have a problem with gravity, which I thought was hilarious. Or like when they get to the base and they're like, Crosshair, check it out. He's like, yep, it's a lift. It like, their banter was just really hilarious, and the comedic timing in the episode was really solid, so I thought it did a good job of like continuing that snappy, witty stuff between the clones that kind of shows you their close-knitness. I also enjoyed the villains in this episode. I like that Trench contacts Wat Tambor. So often in Clone Wars we would get, you know, the villain of the week, and sometimes the villain of the week would come back. But we'd see Trench, we'd see Wat, we would see, you know, Dooku or whoever, and they're kind of all doing their own thing, especially when you get to like the lower level villains. So it'd be like that week's particular strategy droid or something. They would all kind of have their own thing. So it'd be like, this week we face off with the one person, and then they get defeated. This time, you know, you see Trench contacting a different guy and like, hey, heads up, there's going to be a problem. And to actually see the network of Separatist villains, I think makes it make a little bit more sense that they could actually function as an army. Watt at some point says that he's not really worried about being arrested because he has corporate immunity, and that's a very fascinating line. It fits in totally with what the Clone Wars and what the prequel trilogy in general is trying to say about bureaucratic corruption, this idea of how the democracy of the Republic has fallen to bureaucracy. But it's also just really interesting because Watt is a villain. Like, he was there at Geonosis, but he was also a villain in the Ryloth arc. I wonder, like, does he really have some sort of corporate immunity, or does he mean the Techno Union has a corporate immunity, which would make a heck of a lot more sense? They don't necessarily even know he's there. There is some nuance to that I would really like to understand, but, it's classic Clone Wars pointing out the politics of the time. Before they reach the tower, Anakin and Rex have a good chat. This is after the fight between him and the Bad Batch, where he's again trying to prepare him that Echo could be dead. And I appreciate this moment between them because Anakin has to be honest with Rex. He has to tell him this might not go the way you think. But he still supports Rex, and he still wants to back him up. He still wants to say, like, hey, I'm gonna be there for you. And show that friendship. I think it is an important moment between them. After that, they head to the tower. They get into a fight. It's just a lot of action at this point, which I really like. That culminates with being outside of a chamber, and they go inside the chamber, or specifically Rex and Tech go inside the chamber, and that's where they find Echo. Echo is in fact alive, but he is not well, and is in something of a fate worse than death. The chamber he's in kind of reminded me like a little bit of BioShock with a little bit of Deus Ex with a little bit of XCOM. Like, it's a really wild look and a really wild concept. As I said, we will learn more about what is up with Echo next week, but this is a big thing for Rex. Like, yeah, he went back for his brother, and yeah, he found him, but something horrible has happened to his brother. Like I said before, I don't remember play-by-play everything that happened in the story reels that have already been out, but just the big points, not the small ones. So I don't really remember how much Rex really has to deal with this. But even then, with the story reels being updated and we can see newer content, I think we're going to see something like this really shake Rex. That after something like what happened with Fives, which freaked him out because it showed what could lead to a clone's death, this idea that a clone could be taken and like robbed of themselves, I think it's really gonna mess with him. But that's something I think we can talk about next week when that actually gets to play out. Now, before we end this review, I just want to talk about something really quick that I meant to talk about last week, and then it occurred to me that not everyone might actually have believed that Echo was back by the end of last week, so I wanted to keep it off just for spoiler discussion. But now I kind of want to talk about the fact that Echo is back. And this is a really cool beat because this is something that could have been a complete and utter total surprise to you. You could have had no idea that Echo was coming back. It could be that it's been years and you might not have even really remembered Echo or the Citadel arc. Or you could have been like me and been waiting for Echo's return for a long time. See, when Clone Wars got canceled and the half of the 6th season and what was then the final season got put on Netflix, Dave Filoni wrote a letter to fans and he talked a lot about what we could have seen in Clone Wars and stuff. And it was a rare moment where Dave was actually really forthcoming with information. He's kind of known for, his secretry instead of, just telling us what's up. But because he didn't think the show was coming back, he was trying to be good to fans like he always is and tell us. And in this article, he said at the end that I know it meant a lot to a lot of you, and I wanted to let you know that Echo is still alive, letting us know that he was originally going to go and tell that story. Now, that article still exists on StarWars.com, but that line has been edited out. If you go to Wikipedia, they have an archive link of like the original blog, and you can see when it used to be there if you're really savvy. But it's kind of an odd thing because there was a certain section of the Star Wars fandom that knew Echo was alive all this time. And I kind of knew, but I also was never sure if it was really going to count because we were never really going to see it on screen. I think there's a certain amount of people that just kind of forgot that he was going to eventually come back, and some people who just had no idea. So this is kind of like one of those really odd reveals where it's kind of nice that it's all out in the open and we can all talk about it. But personally, I'm just really excited to get Echo back. Echo was one of my favorites from Domino Squadron, if not my favorite. His death on the Clone Wars might be the death that hit me the hardest, if I'm being completely honest. And I'm just really excited to have him back and to have this arc. So those are my thoughts on this week's episode. Please let me know what you thought in the comments. If you're not already, follow us on all of the socials. I'm so excited to get to talk more Clone Wars with you guys. And until next time, keep it real and fly casual.
Cooking can be fun.